Hey guys, it's Brian here, trying to kind of give an intro for the podcast. This is our first one, so mistakes were made. Apologize for how sloppy it may seem. That said, we put a lot of work in this, uh, and we hope you enjoy. We also say and I tend to make a lot of noise, like a lot. So drink every time you hear that. In this edition of the podcast, we're going to be covering school shootings, political correctness, and police militarization. We also touch upon Ebola and discuss young people's role in politics. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy.
It's already starting.
It has already begun. It is too late.
It's all right. Well, hi.
Thumbs up.
Welcome to the Scribe's first podcast. Hopefully, we can do this more often. Since this is the first one, it's going to be the messiest one out of all of hopefully our future ones. I don't want to be too redundant about this. I feel like I'm already redundant. But here we're going to discuss some important topics, not only pertaining to the world outside, but important topics pertaining to what's happening on campus. Well, first let's introduce ourselves. I'm Brian Wellhite.
I'm Kevin Matos.
And I'm not a part of Scribe. I'm kind of more of a contributor, I guess you would call
Contributor?
it. Contributor, I guess you would call it. But I'll have Kevin here explain more on the Scribe, what they do.
The Scribe is the University of Bridgeport's school newspaper. Essentially, what we try to do is we try to cover topics and situations and events that correspond to the UB community, which is made up of various international students. So we try to get both national and international events covered and get as many sides of the story as possible so that our student body can remain informed.
That said, we are still a small, well, they are still a small college newspaper, so they can't get everything down, So I guess we'll try to go over the topics that we couldn't get down on paper. All right, start. First topic.
The topics. You want the actual topics, or you want to just
Let's go into one.
into what?
Let's go into one. Yeah.
How about just the one we were planning on discussing?
Ebola. Yeah.
Ebola.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ebola. Now, I kind of feel like it's a little too late, for the U.S. government to do anything about that. Well, first of all, Ebola's become an epidemic in West Africa. And now it's starting to spread overseas, which is causing a panic of sorts. It spread over to France, I believe. France and the U.S. recently, with cases in Texas, New York, and I believe there's also a case in New Jersey, if I'm not sure. I might be mistaken about that. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on anything. But yeah, I think it's a little too late to be closing down airports or ports. Not too late to stop the disease where it is, so that other places, other countries don't have to go through the measures that we have to now. But it's a little too late to stop importing. That's my belief. I think to prevent the disease from spreading, you should probably close down the airports, like exporting. Something like that. Also, another thing to mention is that this particular podcast, is going to be a really, really short one. Our producer is telling us that this podcast is not going to be a really, really short one, but
this podcast is going to be a marathon.
It's going to be a short one. No, our producer.
Our producer has stressed that this is not going to be a short podcast. Right. Rather, it will be a rather long one.
All right, no, let's get back on topic. Right? Oh, I like this one. Hold on. Police militarization. That's a good one.
Police militarization. All right. So basically, what are your what is your point of view on it?
Well, I feel like the police don't need tanks. That's as because the police have guns, they supposedly have training, they have a bureaucracy, and they have, it's just the police. I believe the police have enough to enforce the rules, the laws of society in their state. Giving them an armored vehicle like a tank or an APC, that doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help the police. Doesn't help the community around it. In fact, it creates more animosity towards the police. You know what I mean? It's not preventing crimes. It's just it's unneeded.
My main issue with it is essentially just the fact that the way it seems that they're prioritizing things, it looks like they are more focused on military methods rather than safer methods as the police should be doing.
Yeah.
Like the police can be armed with guns. There's no problem with that. Sometimes it is necessary. Yeah, there's a reason why they also have rubber bullets, and there's a reason why they also have stun guns. There's a reason why they're trained in hand-to-hand combat in regards to being able to just try to choke someone momentarily.
Yeah.
Even though there's cases of that where it's gone too far and they end up killing people.
Yeah. But the thing about guns is that it's with the proper training, a gun doesn't need to be lethal. It's not, the gun doesn't kill people. This is my stance on guns. The guns themselves don't kill people. All right, it's the people that hold them. If you have an irresponsible person holding a gun, then inevitably that irresponsible person is going to be irresponsible with the gun. You and if you don't properly train police to hold the gun and be responsible with the gun, then you're going to have cases like Trayvon, or cases like what's his name, Brown? Michael Brown. Speaking of militarization in Ferguson.
Ferguson was largely unneeded for a population of that size with that police force. It was actually quite unnecessary for them to have that kind of military force, especially you are in a suburban area and you are blasting it with tear gas, and you're just driving around the entire neighborhood scaring people while you're inside a mine-resistant vehicle. You are in a suburb. There's asphalt.
I love that, by the way.
Why do you have mine-resistant vehicles in a suburb? This is... Listen, I understand places can be dangerous, but mines, they're not only are they outdated, they're also not here. That's the kind of thing you would see probably in large war zones, like probably some areas in the Middle East or even in Africa.
There's dudes laying mines in the middle of the streets just underneath a stop sign. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to have any sort of mine-resistant or RPG-resistant vehicle. They're usually huge. They take up the whole suburban street.
Yeah.
And I saw on Vice News. I'm not sure. Vice News. Everyone knows Vice News. They have their own website, vicenews.com. Everyone knows Vice News. They covered Ferguson, and I remember seeing one part in their coverage where they were literally in a suburban street where the protest isn't even happening, and they were I'm not sure if they were just regular police or SWAT, but they were firing tear gas.
They were regular police.
Regular police.
Yeah, basically regular police was given military grade weapons, and also military grade defenses such as high quality bulletproof vests, helmets, everything you can have. Essentially, it was discussed a lot in both CNN and in other news outlets like the Washington Post or the Huffington Post. One of the things they were really discussing about it is the fact that as you said, people need to have proper training.
Yeah.
People in those news, like in both CNN and in some of the other physical newspaper companies, what you see in some of them, they bring in soldiers who are trained, who have seen battle, who have been on the field. They specifically state, if you are a soldier, you're in a battlefield, and you're armed, you do not lift up your weapon unless you're about to shoot someone.
Yes. Speaking of which, that's what they did a lot.
Yeah.
Also in the footage, you saw a lot of
they were literally playing around with the guns.
Yeah.
That was not proper training.
They were like lifting them up and showing it into faces of people that aren't even a part of the protest.
Exactly.
It's just really irresponsible, and that sort of conduct is scary.
And the main problem here is that Ferguson is not exactly the first place to have this, but it's the one where, with the events that have occurred, has gained the most media attention. And the issue that we have now is currently that we have to go and start looking at other places and see how they're spending their, monetary resources, and see if they're actually prioritizing weapons and armors like this, and vehicles like this, rather than actually protecting the community.
Yeah.
Because once you enter the point where you're just going around in, military grade, walking around with military grade weapons, in tanks, RPG resistant vehicles, mine resistant vehicles, your perspective shifts completely. You're no longer trying to protect and serve. You're in a war zone now, and everyone could be a potential enemy, and that is not something that you want the police to have.
Nah, that's not a good mindset.
And the most problematic thing about that is essentially that you have the police thinking that it's a war zone, and then they create a situation where people feel scared. They feel scared to be outside. They feel scared to go to the police. They feel scared and feel a need to defend themselves.
But it's kind of like that now in the first place, especially in the black community. There's a reason why no one really trusts police. Everyone that I knew, even myself, had a bad experience with a police officer. My sister has had several bad experiences with a police officer. Like a spoiled apple spoils the bunch. A bad apple spoiled. I completely messed up that. A bad apple spoils the bunch. And with the police in mind, you can't afford to have a bad apple. And it seems like there are more bad apples than there are good apples. And of course, there are good police officers.
Definitely.
There are always there are police officers that take their job seriously, and then there are police officers that get the most what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. Then there's police that get the most attention.
Yeah.
And they're usually bad. It's just it's not good at all.
Not.
It's not. I mean, to understate it, it's not good.
Definitely not. I mean, really, it's a rising issue, and the fact that it's been happening over a lot of different places, it shows that it's something that needs
Probably
to be addressed. It needs to be. They literally need to stop this. They need to take away some of the weapons that they have available, because it's not bad for police to be able to have those weapons.
Yeah.
It's not bad for them to have access to them. Problem is that when you give it to them regularly, when you trade in 22 caliber handgun for a 50 caliber sniper rifle, things change.
I'll have to trade that in. I need a 50 cal sniper. All right. So let's kind of switch it up a little bit. I kind of wanted to talk about this. Kevin said an interesting fact, that apparently there's been 50 school shootings over the course of the year.
As it stands, since the year has started, there have been, especially with the events that occurred last Friday, about a week ago, there was a shooting at a high school in Washington last week. As from what I've heard, from what I read in the news, and from what I found out, essentially the young man who shot up the school and later killed himself, seemed to have had specific goals in mind. It was not like your usual school shooting, where they simply go in guns blazing and just start killing people left and right. There's one person that had actually planned things out to the point where they invited the main victims over to lunch to the same table, and then once he arrived and they were there, he shot them all. I believe he also shot a few of the other students around as they were getting away, and then finally he shot himself. But even though that is a very sad thing that happened, we all feel sorry for those poor families that lost their children. Like a school should be a place to learn, not just another hazard of everyday life.
Yeah, it kills me every time.
But essentially, what one of the main problems this addresses is the fact that school shootings received a lot of attention in the past few years because they were so rare and so hurtful to the community. It really resonated with a lot of people. And yet this year, with the one that happened in the high school in Washington, we have officially had 50 school shootings just this year alone. And it is an 87 since the one over in Connecticut in Sandy Hook Elementary.
Yeah. It's starting to become just a daily headline now. It's starting to be near some dude got robbed around the corner now. Which is always there. It's always there, but it shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There should not ever in any country be 50 school shootings in a year. There shouldn't be 10. I'm sorry. This is like, I don't know how to feel about it. I kind of want to know where these kids are getting the guns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it really is a very terrible thing. To be honest, one of the things about this, is simply the fact that the statistics are just alarming because you have 50 and the year is not even over. If this were the last one of the rest of the year and the next 2 months that we have, the average for this year would still be one shooting a week. One school shooting every week.
Wow.
If it goes up and if it continues and we do not do something about this, it basically says, the statistics basically say that with each one, you get closer and closer to being a victim of a school shooting. It means that no matter that if this is not stopped, before it really gets out of hand, then there could be, just any one of us could be going to class one day and not coming back.
I don't want to put it that way because I kind of feel like that's a little bit too fearful, if you know what I mean. I think it kind of borders the line of fear mongering, in my opinion. Though this is an epidemic at this point. This is something that's beyond serious. I don't want to say that at any point there could be a school shooting near you or in your school, because there's millions of schools in America.
Yeah.
And that's a little extreme in my opinion. I kind of wish there was an easy fix to this, I wish there were some conclusions to this that we can draw up, but this is a complex issue.
It is.
You can't just go, oh, you're suspended,
You definitely can't.
And you can't pick out certain students based on how they are, because then that would kind of fall under profiling, and you don't want a parent to come to your school and saying, you profiled my kid and I'm going to talk to the superintendent. It's bad for everyone. That said, I remember I was in criminal justice 101, and Professor Lay actually stated a case where a student that wasn't from the school entered into the cafeteria, sat down, and then he was promptly arrested for trespassing, for not being in that school. And I remember he asked us the question, should he have been arrested for trespassing in that school? And at first I said no, because, it's just a kid. He probably went over there to meet some friends, or maybe he got in the wrong school and he's waiting for his mom. But then when you think about the recent, school shootings and turn of events and how many there's been, I kind of understand where the school was coming from. This is a school in Colorado, by the way. I kind of see where they're coming from,
Yeah.
You can't be too careful with this kind of stuff.
You really can.
Yeah.
And basically one of the major problems that people are going to find in trying to resolve this issue is, if you look at the news, if you look at all the times, all the past school shootings, the majority of them, the assailant, the shooter, is essentially described as a good student, a great person, friendly, social, whatever. So it basically means that even in those you would least likely expect to have issues and to go this far, those can also be there. So basically what it does is it tells you cannot predict who's going to be, doing the shooting.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine that the kid who has been outcast from the school, from social circles, might be likely to do so. But a lot of recent school shootings have provided us that with the simple fact that that's really not always the case, and for at least half of the time, they were actually very involved in school and social activities and everything.
All right, so you know what? Let's talk about politics and young adults. This one's going to be a shorter one. I'm not sure if this is going to be.
Okay, so would you like to discuss how young adults see politics, or how young adults are getting involved in politics, or do you want to go with both?
Yeah, let's go with both. Politics and young adults. I believe a lot of young adults are starting to get involved with politics more. Though there's still a lot of apathy around politics, and my vote won't count. Oh, there's too many old people in Congress. But we have a thriving young Alex. We have a thriving political. Why am I forgetting words?
Because our producer is silently judging us from the background.
Go ahead. Political science. We have a thriving political science major program.
Oh, correction. Our producer is actually watching cat videos on the internet while we're doing this.
What are we doing? This is a podcast, right? We're supposed to be professional with it. What am I saying?
He's the producer.
So
he just has to produce shit.
Yeah, they're getting more involved with politics. Some students are starting to get more into the social awareness, sort of social justice route, trying to fix what society has failed to, fix over the years. One big student advocacy thing. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry.
Advocacy group?
Yeah, there's a lot of students that advocate for gay rights, that advocate for women's rights, minority rights in general. I support it. Everyone should have equal rights, equal opportunities, and there are a lot of advocates for demilitarization. Just changing a lot of things. There's a lot of political activists and young people today.
There is.
I don't mean to sound 40, but I myself sort of have a dream, have a goal. It's sort of different. I think Kevin might have a goal. I hope Kevin might have a goal.
Yeah. Essentially, one of the things I've recently seen between young adults is that as you said, there's been an increased awareness and interest in human rights and all that entails. Other people narrow it down to specific rights, and that's fine.
All right. Yeah.
Basically, one thing I've noticed is that young adults are getting more aware of this. They're getting more involved in this, whether it's by social media, whether it's by through school extracurricular activities or protests. But I've also seen that some people are not only entering political science programs, international diplomacy programs, that kind of stuff, but they're actually following through on that. Even the ones who don't actually go into that major would still start working their way up to Congress and everything. To the Senate. And basically what I find is that they're getting into it so quickly after finishing school, and it shows you just how much these people are dedicated to changing things, that they actually want to get started on that path right away.
Who would you? I think I like to think that we sort of have credibility when it comes to politics. But I kind of want to jump into this. What about the political correctness? Like, what's your stance on political correctness? Like,
political correctness,
yeah.
or in the hands of the politicians, or just in the hands of people in general?
Well, politicians, people in general. I kind of it's sort of a broad thing.
Yeah.
Like
personally, I am a fan of, things that help protect people from being offended and everything, so long as it does not go too far. Like, I do not mind people, for example, just censoring out certain words, so long as they don't try to go so far as to say, okay, you see this entire list of words, people have said they're offensive, so we're removing them all. We're censoring them. And the problem with that is essentially that you have a lot of different people, you have a lot of unique experiences, a lot of things can offend them. So your task with censorship would be, what point would be, enough?
Yeah.
What would be too little and what would be too much, and how can we prevent ourselves from going to either end? Because, too little censorship, and you might have a lot of hate speech going around that a lot of people will be offended by.
Funny enough, I kind of go the opposite of what you said. I kind of feel like I'm pretty liberal with it. It's I kind of feel like the core message of being an American is the fact that you get to say offensive things.
Yeah.
I kind of embrace the idea that though it is hate speech, if it has no sort of connotation that they're going to hurt you or someone's going to die after it, I kind of feel like it should be allowed. That's sort of what makes us American. The fact that we get to say how we feel, express ourselves, without the risk of censorship.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that any sort of censorship would tend to spiral out of control. That's my feeling. Of course, not a lot of people would agree with me, and I understand that. But I feel to keep journalism, politics, and everyday life essentially free, that censorship can't be a norm. You can't be used. I don't think you should be able to be used to censorship. That's me.
I mean, essentially, you have to kind of keep all perspectives in mind and all the different cases in which it can happen. For example, journalists are supposed to be able to. One of the reasons why they use political correctness is because they're supposed to remove all feelings and beliefs out of what they write. They're essentially supposed to report the news and the facts, and that is essentially it. They're not supposed to input their own belief about the situation. Like, whether or not they agree with it is irrelevant. You're simply there to keep the people informed. You're saying, this happened, pass it on. Not saying, this happened, so you should do this. Now, then there's other cases in which, censorship would actually be harmful, like the one with Verizon's, recent attempt to start up a tech news site online. Yeah. But, they're looking to hire people, they're looking to work on getting involved in that market and in that industry. But the problem that they have is that because, they are a major, telecommunications company, they have gotten involved in different things, and they want to keep those things out of the reports. Now, if you're going to be talking about technology and news and anything related to that, and to this world and current events, it's kind of hard for you to be able to get a good audience when you are willfully hiding the fact that you work with spy agencies such as the NSA and transmitting information about your own consumer base.
That's a big thing. It's
like you can try and enter a market if you want to. You can try and go up against other companies, but the problem is, if you are not willing to say what everyone else already knows and is gonna use against you, then you cannot gain any ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you know that it is true, and yet you're hiding it. Even though people know, it's gonna also damage your credibility because they're saying, if you're hiding this, what else are you hiding from us that you don't want us to know? So we can't really rely on like that very company to provide us news about themselves when they themselves don't want to provide us with the news.
Yeah, that seems like kind of a bad decision to make a news site in this day and age, because there's a variety of sources now. There's Vice News, like I said. There are blogs that you can go to. There are forums, image boards. There's a lot of places you could just get your news, and I think that Verizon making a news website is just a drop in a huge ocean. But I digress. Yeah. All right. What are we gonna? How far are we?
We got about 33 minutes.
33 minutes.
Approximately.
That's pretty
Keep
good.
going?
All right. So, thank you. If you watched the podcast, thank you for watching or listening to our first podcast. As you know, we're the Scribe. Well, he's the Scribe. He's Kevin Matos, Brian Wilhite. This has been very fun, actually. It wasn't so bad, our first go. It wasn't so bad. We actually covered a lot of things that I think we should have covered. We had fun talking about them. I hope you had fun listening to us. Whenever we... All right.
Hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. This is the currently our very first podcast. We are looking to do some more. We are planning on making this a regular thing. We even have a list of topics and other things that we're going to discuss. So you can look to further podcasts for both this what is left of the semester and then also next semester. Also,
if you feel like you want us to address a topic or talk about a topic, you can just bring in the letter. You can write a letter to the editor. That's Kevin, the editor of the Scribe, or pick up the Scribe as well.
If there's anything you feel very strongly about, you want us to cover it, you can just go ahead and send an email to thescribe@gmail.com.
It's going to be right around.
thescribeub@gmail.com. And essentially, just send us a message saying podcast ideas or topics in the subject line, and then tell us what you want us to cover. We will look it over, do some research on it, and then if it's possible for us to cover it for one of the podcasts, then we will make sure to do so.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching. See ya.
Have a good day.